Hello, you are listening to Animalia with Amy, where we explore the weird and the wonderful in the animal kingdom. Every episode, we will talk about different most animal categories, such as the most extreme camouflage, the most ridiculously named animals, and the most absurd animal courtship rituals. Hello everyone. So for episode 1, we are looking at the most ridiculously named animals. So there's a few different reasons why I decided to do this as the first topic. So for quite some time now, a few years actually, this has been a topic that just absolutely fascinates me. Not just looking at, the science of animals and the basic zoology of animals, but looking at like humans' connection with them. And a big part of that is language and kind of the names that we give them, whether it's scientific names or the common name, and how there are lots of animals which have, lots of different common names and nicknames depending on the region, the language, things like that. And I just find it really fascinating and really fun. Some of these are just fantastic. And as the title says, a little bit ridiculous in the best way. So today is episode 1, the most ridiculously named animals. So the first animal that I wanted to mention is the nonsense rat, or Rattus burrus. Yes, you heard that right, the nonsense rat. So this is a rodent species home to the Nicobar Islands of India. Now, they also get given other names, such as the Nicobar Archipelago rat and the Miller's Nicobar rat, but I certainly know which name is my favourite. So the species is completely confined to these isolated populations on the islands of Great Nicobar, Little Nicobar and Trinket. It's endemic to these areas, which means it is only found in this one part of the world on these islands. Now, I did find that the nonsense rat is sadly listed as endangered by the IUCN Red List. So the IUCN is a really important organisation. It stands for the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And the Red List website, so you can find that by just searching up IUCN Red List, going on the website, is kind of like a little bit of a Bible for zoologists and conservationists. It's basically a website that was founded in 1964, and it's basically an inventory of like the conservation status and extinction risk of thousands of biological species. In simple terms, basically, it's a website. You search up different plants, animals, any biological species. And if it's on the website, which many of them are, but of course not all of them, not yet anyway, it will tell you whether they're classed as, endangered or least concern or critically endangered, etc. Okay, now the nonsense rat is found in tropical evergreen and semi-evergreen forests of these islands. It has excellent climbing and swimming abilities, and it certainly lives up to its name, because as much as I tried to find out the origin of its name, it remained a pretty much complete mystery as far as I can tell. Perhaps the nonsense rat's name is just complete nonsense. I could not find the origin of it at all, but it's still one of my favourite common names of animals ever. Perhaps that's most fitting of all. Okay, now, moving on, we are moving into the ocean to talk about a species of fish, a type of sea bream that is native to the eastern Atlantic. Now, its common name, the bogue, is not the one I'm most enamoured by. No. Its scientific name, that I just love. Now, its scientific name is literally spelt and written like boops, boops. So, apparently, this scientific name, boops boops, has its roots in the Greek word boops, meaning cow eye or ox eye. Basically, it's got these huge bugged out eyes, and that's what it's named after. So the first part of its name comes from the ancient Greek bos, meaning bullock, and then op, meaning eye. And these huge eyes, and when I say huge, I mean huge compared to the rest of the fish, relative to their body size. These huge eyes really help them to feed at night, which is when they are doing most of their feeding to try and avoid predators. Now, I find it, I think, most fun that it's the scientific name, which is boops boops, because it's just so fun and silly sounding, and yet this is what scientists are using. So boops boops was documented by Aristotle in his Historia Animalium. And then Carl Linnaeus, or the father of modern taxonomy, basically the dude who named everything, provided the first scientific description. And when we say taxonomy, that just means the branch of science for identifying and naming and grouping living things. So it could be as simple as saying, well, this is an animal and this is a fungus and this is a plant. Or it could be deciding, this is the scientific name for species, this is their genus, stuff like that. So the bogue, which remember is its common name, or the boops boops fish, is gregarious, which just means it's sociable. It lives in groups. And what it usually does is it ascends to the surface at night, sinking deeper again in the day. So they are demersal fish, which basically means they live and feed on or near the bottom of seas, in the muddy, sandy, or gravelly seabed. So it is omnivorous, feeding mostly on crustaceans. So most of what they eat is other animals like crustaceans, but they're classed as omnivores because they will also feed on things like algae. So also quite fascinating because I didn't actually know until I did a little bit more research on these fish, which remember is a type of sea bream. Now, they are a type of fish where they can have a female to male sex change. So some individuals start out their life as females and become males later on. So this is something that we see in things like clownfish as well, although it's the other way around. So they can start off as male and become female later on. This is the other way around. This can be useful for a few different reasons. For example, if there's not enough males in a group, for example, of these boops boops fish, then that's when one of the females might turn into a male, for example. Slightly crushingly, I do have to be honest, I did find some sources saying that boops boops, so it's spelled B-O-O-P-S, boops. I did find some sources saying it should really be pronounced boops boops or boops boops. I'm not sure which is correct, and not boops. But let's not let that spoil our fun. I just love boops boops too much. The entire reason why I actually found out about this fish, boops boops, was because of a meme, a zoology meme, where it was basically a picture of this fish, a very cute looking fish with these huge buggish eyes. And it was a picture of how they are listed on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia tends to show like a picture of the animal and then it shows their genus name, which is always the first word of a scientific name, and then their species name, which is always the second word. So it's literally written like boops on one line and then underneath boops boops. So someone had put this on a picture that was like the name's boops boops boops, and that is basically how I fell in love with the boops boops fish, or the bogue. Now, on the topic of fish, Another one of my absolute favorite fish names is the sarcastic fringehead. Now, this is a common name of a small but fearless and feisty, aggressive fish. And I think this has got to be the best, if not one of the best, names of any animal in the world. The sarcastic fringehead. I mean, it sounds like an insult, like the most bizarre, specific insult ever. So, the sarcastic fringehead is a type of blenny. It's a type of tube blenny, which is a particular sort of family of fish. Now, they've got these huge mouths. That will come in important later. They use them for fighting, and a very territorial nature. So they've got their patch of the ocean, and they don't want anyone else in it, or they will fight you. So they live in seabeds and rocky reefs in the Northeast Pacific Ocean. Now, it's kind of a characteristic of blennies, this type of fish, where the female sarcastic fringeheads lay their eggs in the male shelter, and the males then protect them, the eggs, from any predators until they hatch. So another reason why the males have to be very fierce, protective, and territorial. And these fish have intense male competition. Basically, it's kind of very, very important in their behavior that the males are constantly kind of signaling to each other, one male sarcastic fringehead to another, that they are bigger and stronger than the other one is. So the male sarcastic fringeheads display to each other by what looks like, on pictures and videos, kissing one another. However, this is actually how they fight. So they kind of display to one another by opening their huge mouths. They have these giant gapes, kind of, and pointing them towards each other, sometimes even touching their mouths as they're open. And we think this is actually to kind of show how big their mouths are and kind of make themselves look fiercer and stronger and stuff like that. And it also kind of lowers the chances of actual fighting happening instead. It's kind of like posturing, being like, I'm so big, but not actually committing to a fight where they could get injured. So we believe it's named after its huge mouth and these kind of fleshy appendages, bits dangling down over the eyes. That's where the fringe part probably comes from. And I'm guessing sarcastic is just from its overall aggressive, feisty nature. But yeah, it's just fantastic. And if you have never seen what these fish look like, you have to go have a look at a picture of them. They do suit their names very, very well. So let's move on from the ocean. And now we turn our attention to the insect world, which is absolutely full of fabulous names. And my favourites are moth names. Now, there are, for some reason, loads of moths, particularly in the UK, that are called the, and then insert word there, the something. And I don't actually know why this is, why there's so many called the something. Part of it, I feel like, and this is kind of just an educated guess, is that it's because there are so many small brown or grey moths in the UK. Like, just hundreds of them. And so many of them look so similar that people naming them, scientists naming them, were like, right, we're just going to call this one the something, this one's the something else. Okay. So, but I love how dramatic it is. It's like the something. It's like a superhero or supervillain name. Just love how dramatic it is. So, two of my favourites are the uncertain and the confused. And these are genuinely the names, the common names of these moths. So, the uncertain and the confused. And there's loads like this. There's also the rustic. But yeah, I love the uncertain, the confused. It is also basically me on a Monday morning before 9 a.m. So the uncertain is a moth found across the UK. Its name basically reflects the difficulty in telling it apart from similar species. Basically, it is really hard to tell that you are looking at an uncertain rather than looking at another small greyish brown moth. It's in particular very, very similar looking to another moth called the rustic. And apparently they're so similar, one of the few ways to tell them apart is by looking at their reproductive organs. Now, the uncertain is common in England and Wales, but less widespread and more localised in parts of Scotland and Ireland. Similarly, the confused moth joins the realm of moth identity confusion. It's mostly found in northern regions, and its kind of greyish colour often lead to it being mixed up with many other small greyish moths. So the confused is a rare and local species. It's more common in the north, widespread but not common in Scotland, south to the Midlands. So many British moths just have fantastic names. So I definitely encourage you to look at more of these if you've not really looked into it before. So besides the confused and the uncertain, some of my other favourites include the conformist, the sprawler, and the phoenix. How amazing are those? I just love it. I just love that these names are just little grey brown moths as well. So cool. Staying on the theme of insects, I next bring to you some beetles and a wasp. So one of my favourite insect names is to do with a whole group of beetles, actually. So they're in a whole group called a genus. And this genus is Agra. It's a whole group of beetle. There are over 500 described species in this Agra genus of beetles, but there's way more than that like haven't been described properly, and probably some that haven't been discovered. And they're basically a group of ground beetles. Now, the common name, elegant canopy beetles, has been used for the genus Agra. All beetles of this genus have narrow heads and long necks, or at least things that look like necks on a beetle. And tarsomeres, which are basically beetle feet that have little pads for gripping to leaves and plants. But what I am interested in is the scientific names of a few of these Agra genus beetle species. It feels like the scientists, the entomologists, the insect scientists, were having an absolute field day naming some of these. So one particular species, aggravation, was named as a playful pun on the word aggravation. Another relative in the same genus, Agra Schwarzenegger, is a species named after the actor, and another has a scientific name of Agracadabra. I feel like the entomologists were just having a bit of fun with these. I feel like a lot of it is just there's so many of them, they're so similar. You got to get playful with these scientific names. I particularly like aggravation. So how it works is the first word, agra, remember all of the beetles in this group, 500 different ones of them, at least, and they're ground beetles, also known as elegant canopy beetles, which is also a cool name. So the first word, agra, that's like normal. And then the species name, the second word of the scientific name, they gave it is vation, so it's aggravation. I also get the feeling that some of this was because it was probably very aggravating trying to identify and name all these incredibly similar looking beetles that are closely related. But someone's got to do it. And these excellent entomologists did the job and had fun while doing it. But another one of my absolute favourite insect names is the ahaha wasp. So let's talk about the ahaha wasp to finish up the episodes. So the ahaha wasp takes the cake, I think, for sheer silliness, and I love it because we don't often think of science and silliness going together. You maybe think of scientists being kind of dry and not making fun of themselves and stuff like that, but they really, really do. So This is a little Australian wasp species, and it was named by an entomologist in 1977, basically as a bit of a joke. So this entomologist, his name is Arnold Menke, and years after discovering this wasp, Arnold basically received a package of specimens from a colleague and exclaiming, "Aha, a new genus." His fellow entomologist, Eric Grizel, responded with a kind of skeptical, "Huh," like, "Nah, not really. Won't be a new genus." Later, of course, Menke discovered that he was correct. It was a whole new wasp genus. And that's where it got its name. Aha, because the first entomologist had gone, "Aha, a new genus," excitedly. And then ha as the second word of the scientific name because his colleague, his fellow entomologist, had been like, "Huh," in a skeptical way. So therefore, as a bit of a poke at this situation, Arnold Menke called this species officially, its scientific name is aha, aha, ha, ha. And now, apparently, later on, Arnold Menke even got like a personalized registration plate for his car that read "ah ha ha ha," which, again, iconic. I love it. I love how much fun these guys had with this wasp's names. So, I hope you really enjoyed our exploration of these ridiculously named animals, and I hope you join me next time as we explore another category of animal most together. Until then, keep your eyes peeled for the weird and the wonderful in the animal kingdom.